There's a thought you've probably never said out loud, a quiet part of you, that sometimes wants everything to collapse. Not because you're cruel, not because you're broken, but because something deep inside you is exhausted from holding it all together. Stay with that feeling, because what's underneath it is far more interesting than you've been told. You built the life they told you to build. The schedule, the responsibilities, the version of yourself that shows up every single day. And from the outside, it looks fine, maybe even good. But inside, there's this low hum, a restlessness you can't explain. Sometimes it sounds like boredom, sometimes like dread. And every now and then in a quiet moment, it whispers, what if I just let it all go? Psychologists have a name for this feeling. It sits at the intersection of two well-documented patterns, self-sabotage and something called identity foreclosure. Identity foreclosure, first described by developmental psychologist James Marcia, happens when a person commits to a life without ever truly choosing it. You became who others needed you to be. You filled the role. You played the part. And now the role feels like a cage you built with your own hands. The brain recognizes this mismatch between the self you perform and the self you sense underneath. And it does something uncomfortable with that tension. It starts to romanticize destruction. Before we go further, let's make something clear. This doesn't mean you want to die. Doesn't mean you're a danger to yourself or anyone else. It means you're alive enough to feel the friction between who you are and who you've been pretending to be. That friction is not pathology, it is signal. What you're experiencing has a name in existential psychology. Viktor Frankl called it existential frustration, the suffering that arises not from trauma, but from meaninglessness. The secret desire to burn it down is often the psyche's last resort attempt to feel something real. You are not broken. You're trying to find yourself inside a life that may not fit. Here's what's happening in the brain. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational planner, has been running on overdrive, managing, optimizing, suppressing. Meanwhile, deeper structures, the limbic system, the insula, the default mode network, have been quietly accumulating what neuroscientists call interoceptive data. Honest read of your own life. Think of it this way. Imagine two rivers running side by side. One is the story you tell the world about your life. The other is the felt experience of living it. When these two rivers diverge, when your narrative and your nervous system stop matching, the brain enters a low-grade state of alert. And when alert states go unresolved long enough, the brain looks for the fastest way to force a resolution. Sometimes that looks like self-sabotage. Sometimes it looks like fantasy. Sometimes it looks like a quiet, shameful wish that something outside of you would just make the decision for you. Psychologists call this the locus of control paradox. People who feel trapped by their own choices, sometimes unconsciously, create external crises so they can finally be released by something other than themselves. Because choosing to burn it down yourself feels terrifying. But if life burns it down for you, that's survivable. It's not your fault. That's permission. So what do you do with this? Here are 5 principles, each grounded in psychology, for when you feel the pull toward collapse. 1. Name the signal, not the fantasy. The fantasy of everything falling apart is not the truth. It is a translation. What is the unmet need underneath it? Freedom? Rest. Permission to change? Write it down. 1 word. That word is the actual message. 2. Distinguish the life from the self. You are not your job. You are not your relationship status. You are not the expectations you inherited. Cognitive diffusion, a technique from acceptance and commitment. Therapy teaches us to observe our roles without being consumed by them. You can change the container without destroying the person inside it. 3. Create a small, chosen disruption. The brain craves novelty when it's trapped, but it doesn't need catastrophe. It needs agency. Research on behavioral activation shows that small, intentional deviations from routine can restore a sense of authorship over your own life. Take a different route. Say no to something you always say yes to. Do one thing purely because you want to. 4. Grieve the unchosen paths. Psychologist Paul Baltz called this selective optimization with compensation. We can't live every version of our life. And sometimes the desire to destroy everything is actually unexpressed grief for the paths we didn't take. Let yourself mourn that. Grief, when witnessed, loses its urgency. 5. Find a witness. shame thrives in silence. The desire to collapse your own life is one of the most isolating thoughts a person can have. Interpersonal neurobiology, the work of Daniel Siegel, tells us that co-regulation, simply being seen by another person, can shift the nervous system out of its threat state. Tell someone, a therapist, a trusted friend. You don't have to explain everything. You just have to stop carrying it alone. Here's the simple model to carry with you. The wish for collapse is not a death wish. It is a life wish that has run out of language. When the life you're living no longer matches the life your nervous system recognizes as yours, the psyche reaches for the most primal reset button it knows. But destruction is rarely what's needed. Translation is, your restlessness is a message in a language you were never taught to read. Learning to read it, that is the work. You don't have to blow up your life to finally start living it. You don't have to earn your own permission through suffering. The part of you that wants everything to fall apart is not your enemy. It is the most honest voice you have. It is tired, is asking to be heard. And the quiet, radical act of listening to it without acting on it, without burying it, that might be the first real choice you've made in a long time.